All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream with myself, Greta Wall, and members of the Inner Circle, David Prince, Kira Turner. We are waiting on possibly Rick March. If he appears, we will bring him up, but just want to quickly get some disclosures out of the way. This is through T3 Live, of course, and Kira joins David in the Inner Circle every day as part of the moderator. You guys know David well, but we're going to get to know Kira today for the first time on one of these live streams. So thank you both for being with me today. Again, this is Inner Circle Live. We have Kira, David. Hopefully we'll be getting Rick in a little bit to discuss. But first we want to meet the team. So again, David Prince runs the Inner Circle with Kira and Rick as co-moderators there in the room. We know David's role in this room. So Kira, kind of detail what
I'm the look, she's the brand.
Okay, so Kira, tell us more about what you do in the room on a daily basis.
Mostly I try to support David and focus on his outlook for the overall market, and then remind traders in the room when good trades are coming up. So sometimes they're David's trades that are coming up. Sometimes I've spotted a trade, or maybe Rick spotted a trade, and I try to remember different price levels that we're watching for and alert people. And then oftentimes there are questions in the room. I try to answer questions. And there are people on the chat who contact me more privately, and I'll kind of guide them through how to trade sometimes. So I help wherever I can, but I definitely have a more supporting role to David's overall market view.
Mm-hmm. Great. Right.
No, but she's
David,
amazing,
if you want to add why you chose Kira to be a co-moderator with you in this room, like what is it about her?
Kira's an amazing support system. However, Kira has jumped out of planes. Kira has jumped off cliffs. Kira has done rodeo, and Kira has done that deep diving stuff where you go down without equipment. Kira is fearless, yet a very responsible, great risk taker, and has made a bloody fortune for herself and lots of other people. So she's an amazing trader, but I think maybe she relies on me for more, I'm just saying this, a macro perspective, maybe what stocks we're focused on. But when it comes to taking risk and making lots of money, she's great at it. And she does it what I like about it is she's an aggressive risk taker that does it responsibly.
Mm-hmm. All right, good news. We have Rick. Rick is here. Hello,
Here
Rick.
we are. Hi, how are you?
All right, so now we have the whole team here. Rick March, Kira Turner, David Prince. This is the Inner Circle. So Rick, to catch you up, Kira introduced herself and what her role is in the room. So if you could go ahead and do that, what is your role within the Inner Circle on a daily basis?
I provide charts and levels, and I also support David's ideas and thoughts during the day. I also focus a lot on option ideas and bring those to the chat as well.
All right, great. And David, if you could kind of give the same kind of thing you did for Kira, for Rick, why did you think Rick was important, his skill set to help you moderate this room?
Really vast knowledge. He's been at this for quite a few years and really has an expertise in a few things. First would be charts, and really he's a Fibonacci expert and really knowing levels and coming up with them so we can utilize them during any type of volatility or chart. The second thing is, though, Rick has a great talent for options, whether it be a strangle, a spread, a butterfly. He really understands his options and has been at it a long time. So he adds, let's say, another tool for us to use during any period of time. It could be earnings, how to structure an option, what's too expensive, where the IV might be right, or maybe it's wrong and it's an option we shouldn't take. So his vast knowledge definitely adds to the toolbox.
Great. All right. So we do want to take a look at some of your recent trades in the room, but just a reminder for everyone who's here with us in the audience, whether you're on YouTube or Twitter or on StreamYard, submit your questions for anyone, Kira, Rick, or David, in the chat or in the comments, and we will make sure to answer them. So if you have any stock-specific questions or something comes up while they're talking about something, go ahead and put those in. All right, guys, so let's take a look at what you've been doing recently in the room. This was a trade from this morning. David caught a quick bounce on IWM right off the open. You know, we highlight your trades a lot, David. We're going to go through some that we've looked at recently as well. You were doing similar moves in IWM last week, and actually these are, when is it, the 18th? So last Thursday.
More specifically, on Monday,
calls.
we had a huge reversal, and we really
that's that one on the left.
Right, got pretty long there.
Yeah, but some good recent trades from Kira as well. She had a great trade on crowd puts Monday following the CrowdStrike meltdown. As you can see, the response from the room giving her kudos. So you're not just getting trade ideas from David himself in the room, but also trade ideas from Kira. Yeah, go ahead.
This is a great way to explain what Kira's so good at. So we were chatting on CrowdStrike and how to play it and so on. And a few of us, frankly, were long. I don't want to look like a genius. I was up $7 on Thursday and didn't sell all of it. And the next thing you know, I wake up Friday. But we discussed it, how to be proactive and what to do. And what we came up with and what I was saying was, listen, this isn't a one-day thing. This is way too big. And this is going to last in the stock. So it may be bouncing now, but there's more to it. I don't know what I got so busy with, but I was busy with something. And, you know, I never bought puts, but let me tell you who did. Kira. And let me tell you that half the chat bought them with her. And Kira can speak on it, but I know they went up a lot. They made a lot of money. So my point is, there's an example of where Kira's great at like paying attention to details, what we're looking at. So even if I miss my own idea, she's generally there catching it. Maybe Kira, you can tell them about the trade.
Yeah. So after that news came out, and I was long a little bit of CrowdStrike going into Friday too, and I was locked out of the account where I was long, so I couldn't even sell it. And I thought I would buy some puts. So it bounced up to about 314. It gapped down below that to under 300, ran up to around 314, and I bought puts there. And a lot of people did follow me on the chat, and we held them overnight. And the next day they were up a lot. I don't even remember how much they were up, but it was a lot. And then I was able to close the long position as well. And thankfully made much more in the puts than I lost in the little bit of remaining stock that I had long. So that was a fun trade. And then I think it was the same day, maybe I'm getting my days mixed up, but at one point I rolled my puts over because I had 310 puts, and then I changed to the 290 puts to lower my risk. So I had a little less money tied up in them. And those I've traded in and out of a few times. I closed them today. I'm looking for another bounce in CrowdStrike. And if it goes high enough, I may buy puts again. But part of that trade was just because David and I and everyone on the chat had talked so much about CrowdStrike and what a serious issue this was going to be and how long it would take to resolve, that I knew that this was a high probability trade and I really wanted to be in it. So it turned out to work. It worked really well.
Yeah, great. And so, of course, we're not just getting ideas from Kira in the inner circle and David, but we're also getting ideas from Rick. This is a quick little short that Rick did on UPS yesterday morning. And you can see from the chat, people followed him, said, I would have missed that one if it weren't for you mentioning it. Thank you. And got a piece of the UPS trade too. Thanks, Rick.
The UPS trade, I'm sorry. The UPS trade was part of our day after trades scenario. After earnings, whether it's up or down, we wait for the first minute to 3 minutes. And if it goes lower, we short it, take maybe $4, $5, $6 out of it, never let it go against us. And it worked out very nicely on UPS. If I had stayed with it, it would have gone down another 4, but that's not where my attention was focused.
Right. And I just think it's important to show the audience that if, they're joining Inner Circle or want to be part of Inner Circle, you're not just going to get David's guidance, you're going to get Kira's guidance, Rick's guidance, you three as a trio, just a wealth of knowledge there.
Rick has made a living this year on Eli Lilly. I've never bought it once. So just another example. Everyone has kind of
everyone has their niche, their thing.
Right. And Rick is really, I don't want to speak for him on this. How long have you been in and out of Eli Lilly? Probably the last 400 or 500 points?
Oh, yeah, easily. It's because I'm fat or used to be, and I was taking, I could say that. I was taking the product and it worked. So I bought Lilly. Not that smart.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about some of the earnings that we got this week, the big earnings that we've gotten so far this week. I know we got some more after the close today, and we can talk about those in a bit. But Tesla earnings were a disappointment, to say the to say the least, for the street, looking at the response today. To look at the earning, or the EPS, the revenue, auto revenue specifically was really bad, and the operating margins just continuing to decrease. Just look at the chart, a daily chart going back to the last earnings report. And so a daily chart, so that big drop there at the end is today. We can see we're below the 21 days, still above the 50-day. How did you guys navigate this report after hours yesterday? And then how did you approach Tesla during market hours today? If you want to, you can all discuss together. We can take turns.
So both of them have lives. So when the conference call started, I'm the one who's kind of addicted to work and was basically the only one still trading because it didn't start till 5:30. A few people on the chat were listening, and as I finished hearing Elon speak and get off and remove himself from the call, the stock was 235, and I looked at the 233 pivot, which was support, and said, "This is a horrific conference call." If you're worried about not the future, and I'm not speaking about that, and Kramer's positive, and lots of my futurist friends are. But if you're worried about core fundamentals, these weird things that people sometimes care about, like sales, margins, and earnings, this is an abomination. Now, if you're worried about flying taxis, ice cream machines that you can marry, and also clean your house, and all that great stuff, humanoids, robo-taxis, which, by the way, some of it is very real and will come true, that's all well and good. But for right now, today, this is ugly. So I said 234 is gone. Short the hell out of it. I made a few points and ran. Today, to go a step further, I actually was much more focused on other trades. I tried to trade it there's a gap fill between like 213 and 218. And as I got to about 218, I started to buy some. I think I made $1. Then it went down to, and I said, you know what? There's other easier fish to fry. I'm moving on from this. So I actually took a loss on half of it and moved on. And it actually rallied higher and at the end of the day tanked. So that's how I played it. I don't think Kira and Rick really did much with it today, correct?
No, I didn't.
I shorted stock a little bit pre-open, but I covered it right at the opening.
Post earnings, what are all of your thoughts on the stock? Well,
as David just said, they don't make cars anymore. They make dreams. I don't need dreams. I need investments. So I don't like the stock. I think it can trade down to 205 without a problem. And then it may find some value buyers there, but otherwise this is a no trade for me.
What about you?
I would say if it does get down to that 205, 206 area, which is where the 200-day is and where some support is from way back in like February, it's probably a decent spot for a bounce. It would be worth a trade there at least.
Right, a trade, exactly.
It's like an emotional proxy trade, maybe as we get closer to October when the event's there. If it happens to be near lows and we're closer to October and everyone's going to talk about flying taxis again, then fantastic. That's I think it's more a vehicle for me. I'm not, by the way, I know smart people who think Elon is the most incredible human alive, and I respect them. I respect Elon. He's one of the smartest men there ever were. But I'm not a futurist, so there's things I'm better at that I know I can make money right now and have a bigger edge. So that's where my focus is. And not speaking for both of them, but I'm pretty sure that's what they'd say too. It's like I'll let some expert tech person buy it, and if they want to deal with the ups and downs till robots start taking over the world, great.
Tesla used to be very much the hottest investment stock. Like if you asked anyone, they'd tell you buy Tesla for long term. Is it a long term investment at this point, or
it just feels so speculative now? I mean, you're speculating on Elon's ideas and his ability to bring them to reality, which so far he's done a pretty good job of. So it certainly could be this amazing, successful company, but like David said, the sales of EVs isn't going well. So right now they're not doing so well.
I think this is a trading stock now going forward until they actually start delivering cars.
And in essence, here's how I look at it. The people buying Tesla, they're private equity investors. They're basically, it's like a private equity investment, except instead of paying 50 million val or 100 or 200 million val, you're paying hundreds of billions of dollars. So to me, it's almost like, but the payoff for those people when humanoids take over and we all own them, and if it really all happens, it'll be huge. But I'll worry about it as we get closer. And if I miss some on the upside, okay. But to me, it's like you're basically, it's like a private equity investment. You're just paying a big premium for it. But I get why. It's a premier CEO, one of the best there ever were. He's created so much wealth. It's not even funny.
Yeah. All right. The other earnings report we got was Alphabet, Google. It was a little more mixed than Tesla, but the street's response was also negative today. So a beat on earnings, a beat on revenue, but YouTube ad revenue was a miss. I think that was a big sticking point for the market. Google Cloud revenue beating. So look at the chart as of the close today. You can see that huge gap down in today's session from yesterday's close. We're getting some questions about specific stocks in the chat. So I just want everyone to know we're going to answer those if you could just stick with us through this portion. David, you and I talked yesterday pre-Google earnings that these earnings, Tesla and Google, were going to be a big tell for the overall market for you, of the overall tech sector.
Right, the response.
What are you thinking now after these two earnings reports and the negative response we got to them?
What I anticipated, which was the major anticipation was, hey, there's no room for not being good. There's not going to be like, we'll look past this. This number was good enough. That we have come so far in the market that if it's not good enough, you're going to get pounded. So Google was pretty good. Google's numbers were actually pretty good. So YouTube numbers were soft, but cloud pretty strong. But overall, they weren't horrendous. But the stock has gone so far. So is the market. There's no room for error and thus hit very hard. So what it tells me is that unless you have bona fide excellent results where you're beating top and bottom line, margins are holding up with a good guide, there's lots of downside. But when you can do all that, you can be like ServiceNow this evening, which is flying, or KLA Instruments, which is flying. So it doesn't mean they're not going to reward good stocks. It just means they're not going to ignore, sometimes like one number is bad and it turns red, as we've had this great bull market, but they'll buy it anyway and it'll go higher because Kramer says everyone that sold it's wrong and they'll follow Kramer, that sort of stuff. That game's over. You have to have real decent numbers with where the market is now.
Kira or Rick, any thoughts on Google?
I think it easily comes down and tests the 168.40 as a fib level, and then the 165 is the 100-day. Not exactly 165, but I think 165.10. That's where I think it would come down to. There's no reason not to.
Okay. And Kira?
It's not something I'm particularly focused on. I don't really see anything to do with it right here. So I'm just looking at names that I can trade, today or tomorrow in the really near future. And Google's not really on the top of my radar.
Great. All right. Talking about names you could trade today or tomorrow. David mentioned them both. ServiceNow and KLA both reporting earnings after the close today. So if we're looking at tomorrow's open or pre-market or, whatever, today after hours still, where are you guys looking at both of those stocks? Any trades that you're looking to do? I know David and I think Kira and Rick, I didn't look in the room to know if you followed or not, but that SOXL, you built a position in that today.
Yeah, we bought it. There's a nice sharp drop right at the close. It went from 44 to under $43. And I know David and I bought it. Maybe Rick did too.
I did as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just went up $1 or so. I've trimmed most of what I bought on that little drop, but I've got some from earlier in the day. So we've been buying it on the way down. We got to pop up. We'll trim some. It goes back down. We might add some back. It pops up. We trim some. So we're staying in that trade and expecting that to be a really nice trade over the next few days.
So if we're looking at like tomorrow's trading session, we have that trade, and then anything that either any of you are looking to do on Now or KLA?
I'll look at it for the day after trade and see how the pre-market's going, and use the same technique that I did for UPS, whether it's up or down.
Again, because he said one half of it, but he said it perfectly correctly. It's you have a minute or two of gyration. You create an actual range, right? A defined range. Sometimes it's $1, depends on the size of the stock. Once it takes out the high, you're long. Once it takes out the low, you're short. And it's typically, it's just getting on the right side of the trend. For me, I bought a decent amount of NVIDIA today. I trimmed some after hours on this move. SOXL was my focus, which, by the way, was based upon the fact that the SOX, which lost over 4% and has led this correction to the downside, might find some buyers near the 100-day. So the way to play that bounce is we went with SOXL, which has already become a pretty profitable trade because, like Kira said, we were buying at the close under 43. We're 43.65 now. Listen, every trader in the world knows, especially money manager or trader, the best thing we could have tomorrow is a great big ugly open. It would make things more. I told Inner Circle, expect an up open because the market doesn't make things easy. So my thought was, if you want to make money, you have to have some longs on now. A lot of traders who are anti-risk would be flat into a close like this. I actually do the opposite. The good news is after hours, we already had a bounce, so we've done some trimming. But I'd like to see a down open, and I up my quality, right? I don't look at C, D, and E level stocks. Like today, people mentioned SMCI, and I was like, every time you mention SMCI, I'm going to buy another 500 NVIDIA. I don't like if NVIDIA is going down like it is today and hitting new lows and crossing the 50-day and has some risk to it, by the way, the chart's a bit broken, then I don't think about SMCI. I'm thinking about the SOX, or I'm thinking about NVIDIA, or I'm going to buy Broadcom. I'm going to up the quality, right? So anyway, that's what I'm looking at tomorrow. I'll pray that someone is scared some way and we have a great big ugly open to buy, because another day of this would set up very well for a short-term trade.
Kira, for yourself, when you're preparing, tonight for tomorrow, what are you looking at?
Well, I also bought a fair amount of NVIDIA and SOXL today. And one of the things I do in a market like this is really narrow my focus. So over the past week or so, I've cut down on positions. The market started feeling kind of erratic, big sharp moves up and then quick drops. And so I really lowered the number of positions I had to just a few. And even going into this correction, I'm just buying the very best of the best, like David said, NVIDIA, SOXL. Those are my two main focuses. We've also been buying, I bought some IWM because I had cleared out of that a day or two ago. So I put some of that back on. But the nice thing is if we get an up open tomorrow, I can trim some of what I bought today. If we get a down open, I'm in a position where I can add to my trades. So either way works for me. A down open would be great because I would add more. And then, on an up move, start to trim again. So it's just a continuous process. But this is really great when we have these sell-offs because we get such good prices on our stock. And then as we trim on the way up, if it's something you really like, which for us buying NVIDIA, we really like NVIDIA. So we will definitely hold a core position for a longer term trade.
From YouTube, we got somebody wants all of your thoughts on NVIDIA. And then from here in StreamYard, somebody's asked, is NVIDIA a buy here? Can we start a position or wait? So who wants to go? Who wants to talk about it?
Well, we've been starting NVIDIA today and we'll continue to buy it into 507. Sorry, my head's all over the place. Into 107 and see how it trades down there. There's no guarantee that it's going to stop, but this is where we started buying, and the risk reward here is very, very good.
And to kind of continue on that path. So I'm a student of the market, and thus I've learned the climate kind of dictates how patient or lack of patience I may be on a position. So last week we bought NVIDIA into a level that was pretty defined. It was 116, 117. It bounced to 122. We sold most. Came back into 117, bought a bunch, bounced back to 123, sold most. Here we are this week, it's breaking down. So a few things. Me, Kira, Rick, anyone in Inner Circle have plenty of room. In other words, we could be down a couple dollars in NVIDIA, and we're probably excited to buy more because we just made ourselves a lot of money on it last week. Next, the actual chart itself is a bit broken, right? So anyone has to be cognizant of that. The stock rarely breaks below the 50-day. Today, it cleanly got below the 50-day, and it could trade lower. there's a gap fill that a lot of people see, which is down to about 107. Here's what I think. I think that KLA tells you things are still strong. I think that Taiwan Semi tells you things are still strong. And I think that everyone and their mother is basically always going to have a bid underneath, because if there is a company that is still thriving, where orders are clearly not slowing down, perhaps even speeding up, it's NVIDIA. For anyone who says it's expensive, on a forward earnings basis, there are about 90 million companies more expensive than this one. So it's hard to say it's not a buy. However, this is how I trade a stock like this. You have to be aware that there's a worst case scenario. There's always a worst case. But in this, my worst case, doesn't mean it can't go lower. There are people out there who say it's overpriced, it's going to 100 or lower. My worst case in the short term is 107. So I manage my position, meaning I'll get bigger as we get closer to that spot. If we never get there, so be it. But that gives me the ability to manage my risk and know when to size up and when to size down. So long story short, I own it today a decent amount. But when I bought it today and it bounced to 117, I sold some. Came down, bought some. I'd say my average cost today was probably, I don't know, it was 114.70 or something. And every time it rallied, I would sell some. Right here, it's a dangerous stock, but it's a great fundamental story. They don't report for 4 weeks. We have some evidence that this business is holding up and prospering. Here's the bad news. TSM actually went down on good news. So I wouldn't just buy it and assume it's free money and this is an easy buy. I would buy it and manage your risk, not by saying, oh, I'm not willing to lose $1. Be willing to lose some money. Manage your size. Don't get too big too soon, and leave some room, because you might see 108, 110. And that's really what I think. I think it's a great opportunity as long as you don't think you caught the low here, because this may not be the low. The market's due a correction. And by the way, we've been doing this with NVIDIA since 300, 400, 500. So I remember the last time I was buying NVIDIA, I started at 800. The same day it got to 762. I bought it and everyone told me NVIDIA is going to crash and it's going out of business and blah, blah, blah. And I held it to 1,000. Well, it's got quite a market cap now. So I'm not telling you I think it's going to 140 anytime soon, but I'm also not too worried that the company's going out of business nor about to fall apart. So I'm pretty comfortable here. Just manage your risk. I talk too much.
With earnings in 4 weeks, is it beneficial to the stock to have a pullback heading into those numbers versus continuing to rally? I mean, we look at Tesla, Google, both really strong up into the print and a huge meltdown after.
Best thing that can happen.
I absolutely think so too. And here's what's going to happen. Another week and a half or so, people will start saying, well, look at these 110 or 115 or 120 calls to take them through earnings. And that's when you'll see the run up, because people will buy that option, those options, minimizing the risk. And on a run up into earnings, we saw Netflix do it and then they fell apart afterwards, but it doesn't matter. It's what you're trading today. And that's where your focus is.
All right. Somebody from YouTube, someone wants your thoughts on ENVX. If anyone has any thoughts on ENVX as a ticker.
You probably know the story better than most, I guess, right?
Yeah. I was
monopolized. So great story stock, but it is in essence a story stock. With all due respect, I've always said, like, I know a fellow, not going to mention his name. We're friends. He's in one of my venture capital deals, coincidentally, and he's a household name, right? This guy, like, he contacted me on Twitter because by accident, he's like, oh, I'm in one of your deals. And I was like, I've respected you forever. Like, the guys on CNBC all the time, really bright. And my point is, this guy's in ENVX. And this guy's like as smart as they come. He's written books. I can't even understand half of what he writes. Here's my point. Then there are people out there who thinks it's a cockamamie story that is worth zero and it's all a joke and they can't do what they claim. Here's what I know. I know that the stock pattern at 770 for me changed when there was huge news of an OEM order. And they've continued to have pretty significant news without naming the clients, which is partially an issue. We're in a more friendly small cap market. They seem to have great news flow, and it's something that can work if the small cap stays strong. So I think it is an amazing spec play. I've owned it since 770. I'm not in it now. I think I last got out about 17, and I would buy it on pullbacks. Chart's not so beautiful. So if you're comfortable with a story stock, this is one you can look at. The problem is it's below the 21-day, and the 50-day does not come in until the 13th. So for myself, I wouldn't start buying until I saw 14 or under. And I know guys who are like, this is not a story stock. This is one of the most important investments you'll make. Right now, they don't have earnings. They're not going to have earnings or revenue for like a long time. Well, maybe some revenue. So you have to know what you're buying. That said, the TAM on what they're doing is huge. We're not talking to like, they're not making tacos, right? They literally can put batteries in phones and cars, and the TAM is unbelievable. So if the story comes true, the upside is unbelievable. So know that you have huge risk, but the reward is somewhat huge as well. That's how I view this stock. Great story stock. Just understand there's a lot of risk. Oh, I can't hear you. Is it me or you?
It was me. Great example of the knowledge that David just, provides for Inner Circle members, everyone trading with him. Let's talk about IWM, because we're getting some questions about IWM. Still to come this week, we're getting the PCE price index on Friday. This is what everyone says is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. What they say is their preferred inflation gauge as well. So what does this mean for IWM and the Qs? We've seen this huge rotation into, small cap strength out of big tech. And this number, I would argue, is very important this Friday. Anyone's thoughts on IWM heading into this number?
I'm going to bow out because I've talked a lot. So I'm going to let one of you chat.
We've been trading IWM a lot. And David, I think, was the first person I'm aware of who really thought that we could rotate into small caps. He's been really letting the Inner Circle know that this could be a big trade as long as the economy looks good for small caps. And so we've seen that start. We had a nice move from 204 to 224, so 10% move up in the IWM. I think most of the Inner Circle was in it for most of that move. It's pulled back a bit now. I sold it a couple days ago, and I've just started getting back in. I do want to keep a position in IWM. I think it's got some more upside. Of course, the PCE will affect it this Friday. I won't have a huge position, but I'll have enough on to make a difference if it is to continue. But ideally what we'd like to see on this chart pattern is it continue to go sideways for another few days or week and then break out again to the upside. So that's what I'll be looking for. There was one major buy area, just to be clear, after really being as overbought as it's been in history. Like we had a bunch of calls in it at 226, 225. I actually shorted a lot of stock because I had called. Like, first off, I think the calls are going to go down, but I want to hold some. Second off, I think I can make money. Anyway, the point is we had a 3-day reversal down and caught up to some of our moving average. They gave us a very defined buy in front of the 10-day at 115. The problem, it's a good problem. It then bounced 8 points in 24 hours. So I think Kira sold it all. I sold a lot. I had calls that went from like 2 to 550 or something dumb in stock. And now it's more of a trade for me. In other words, I'll trade around it. I will always hold some. I think it's a good investment. Now, there are other people out there, the Tom Lees, who are like, this is going to 300. I have an issue because if the economy is really going to slow down and slow down too much, a lot of these companies aren't great companies. They don't earn lots of money. So I'm more of the theory that we're going to 230, 240, and I owned a lot from 201. So this is already a home run for most people that have been involved. I mean, like I had calls that doubled, tripled, that just kept going. So if it goes up another 50, fantastic. But I wouldn't first be getting big now because these aren't great companies. So we almost have to have the perfect soft landing, right? We need these rate cuts for it to work. And we need the economy not to get too soft so these companies can prosper even in a slowing environment. And to me, that's a hard kind of perfect landing. So on pullbacks, I'm a buyer. We had that great entry. The next pullback, I'll be a buyer. But here I'm open-minded. I'll let the chart tell me what to do.
Rick, do you have any thoughts on the IWM chart as a chart?
As a chartist, I will tell you that IWM's come in to a nice level. It sold off from the 224, and I'm long. Actually, I'm long the TNA, the 3X. Gives me a lot of leverage there, and I prefer it. And like David said, we'll see it. Everything here seems to be a trade until the PCE comes out.
Yeah, sorry. PCE will, if we're going to have an extended breakout, I mean, it was already unbelievable as far as I'm concerned, but if we're going to get above that 225, 226, Rick's right.
Yeah.
It's going to be about the PCE. We have to have additional confirmation that, hey, they're going to push up rate cuts.
We got a question from Twitter. Want to know about any of your thoughts on swinging IWM leaps?
Well, I got a great answer. I'm sorry.
All right, go. Give your
Unless
answer.
we get into one of these very rare moments in time where the IWM outperforms, and there was a period in the mid to late 60s, early 70s, where after underperforming for a huge amount of time, the SPY went down, Dow went down, and small caps exploded higher, like still outperformed. Unless we get to that one period, small caps forever and ever underperform. By the way, because they're just not the best companies in the world, and many of them don't earn money. Many of them need capital. So my thought is, if you're going to play small caps, please don't do it via. I can't give you advice, but that's almost the last thing I do. Now, if you want to look out the next few months and think there might be huge outperformance, and it might even go up 40%, well, I've done that. I've been aggressive. It was my largest position just a couple of days ago, right? But if you're worried about leaps and looking a year out, I think you can do better. I just over the history of the last million years, if there's something that underperforms the SPY and Qs, it hasn't been around the last billion years. But you get the idea. It's IWM. So leaps would not be the way I'd ever do it. Maybe a few months out.
Let me say this. I only use leaps if I'm looking at technology stocks or something that's going to be reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So I can buy some, I can put it away, and I don't have to think about it.
And this is coming from a guy who bought his granddaughter NVIDIA like 1 million points ago. So I think he knows this stuff.
She got mad, actually. It was Microsoft.
Microsoft. Okay. John wants thoughts on Amazon. We all know David likes Amazon as a Mag 7 stock. So what are everyone's thoughts?
I think it stabilizes here and then runs up into earnings, like we said before. They really have to really blow things away on the upside. Surprises with AWS and what they did with Amazon Prime Days. The Whole Foods section is not working out for them. I don't know if they're going to write that off or whatever, but when I go to local Whole Foods, it's you can shoot a cannon through there. So I'm long calls. I don't have any stock right now. I'll put some on it if it trades in a little bit more.
I'm more of like a fairly aggressive fan on dips. However, there's a cap to the upside with the founder selling billions and billions of dollars of stock. So here's what I'm doing. I'm adjusting to the scenario. So I had a decent amount of stock at 184. I had a decent amount of calls. Yesterday on that amazing rally, rather than what I say, which is drink the Kool-Aid and think we're going to the moon, I said, wow, what a rally I just had. I not only went from being down on some of this, I'm up quite a bit of money. Let's take some chips off the table. Let's adjust. Jeff selling is definitely putting a cap on the stock. Earnings are next week. Maybe if there's a dip, I'll get aggressive again. And I think Kira sold a lot too. And I'll trade around a position so we can either have Jeff sell enough stock that he can buy his island or country or whatever he's looking to do. Or we just have good enough earnings that they're so undervalued, which, by the way, is very possible. Their advertising business killing it. Their retail business obviously killing it. It looks like AWS, especially if you just look at Google's numbers and the way they're scaling cloud, should be great. So maybe that can eat through a stock. But I'm adjusting to the scenario. And 188 was awesome yesterday. So I sold a bunch.
Yeah, I actually sold all of mine yesterday. I'm very happy today that I did that. But I would look to buy it again on it. I mean, it sold off pretty well today too. It's down over $5 today. I didn't buy any. I would look to buy it again probably maybe tomorrow and look for a trade. I probably won't hang on to it for very long.
And I left a trailer from yesterday. So today, if they go to zero, they go to zero.
All right. We got a clarification on the leaps question. By leaps, I mean I added September, November, and January calls, but looking to sell all of them in 6 weeks.
Yes, I think that, that's not like, that makes a much more logical, that makes a lot more sense. What would what's his name? What would Bernie say about that, Rick?
I would not be buying leaps in Amazon because he does not let people go to the washroom in the warehouse. It's very bad. As Senator from, where am I? Vermont. Yes, I'll come have pudding. Senator from Vermont. I forgot. Thank you.
For everyone who's not part of the inner circle, Rick is great at impressions, and David requests them throughout the day. So for some entertainment during your trading day, you have Rick there for charts and levels and some comedy. All right, Rafa wants everyone's thoughts on Meta. We have earnings, I think, next Thursday. I think it's today. It's next week. Yeah,
for sure. Latter part
yeah.
of it. Some people might be concerned. It's funny. You have two schools of thought. You know, your advertising could be soft. You saw YouTube with Google, and maybe that means be concerned about Meta stock traded like it was concerned. My concern that people aren't talking about, most people look at Meta and say, hey, dominant company. He doesn't waste as much money as he used to, trades at a much more reasonable valuation than a lot of big cap tech. And they seem to be hitting on all cylinders. But I remember what he said last quarter, which is I'm upping the spend, and the stock did trade down to 398, 400 in after hours. So being that he warned us about that, here's how I look at it. If it's down into the print, I think it sets up okay. It's not expensive. I actually think they'll do fine. I'm not worried about ad rates with them. I don't think YouTube's a huge read. Someone told me today, and I'm not smart enough to know, that perhaps YouTube weakness is Meta's gain via Instagram. I don't know. Here's what I do know. If the stock's off 80 points, meaning it was just, what was it, up at 530? If it's off 80 points back into that 450 area into the print, it sets up okay. It makes some sense. It's just not my favorite big cap tech stock. He's already told us he's upping spending. It's fine. I don't see it as a must own up here. If it got ugly again down at 400, yeah, then I'd be like, all right, you have to own it because it's reasonably priced and it's so dominant. It's its own little monopoly, and they still have yet to monetize so many other parts of the business like WhatsApp. So it's going to be based on price for me. If it pulls back enough, it's an okay play.
Anyone else? Any Meta thoughts, or want to move on?
I don't have anything to add to that. That was a great summary.
It's a great. Yeah, I'm looking at the 460 level. If it takes it out, I think you'll get 450, and then I'll buy it there.
All right. We got two questions on AMD. So thoughts on AMD. They have earnings combined with multiple product launch. There were product defects. They just came out recalling the Ryzen 300 with availability right after earnings. This commenter says, I see this as a positive to increase their guidance. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then we got another question on thoughts on NVIDIA's cousin AMD broke 150. Is it a no touch? So what do we think about AMD here?
Okay, here's how I look at it. So first off, you should know our history with AMD is pretty good, right? I got very bullish at 162 to 164. We rode it to 183, 184 and sold it recently. I just thought it was a phenomenal catch-up play. Here's where we stand now with AMD. I think as an investment, right, what's going to happen is the AI part. And remember, there's a big problem, right? There's word out there that they are getting canceled orders for, what is it, M1300, whatever it's called, their major AI chip. The largest clients are canceling orders because it's not doing half of what it's supposed to do. So there's so many stories out there like that, right? Then you had the news story this evening. The chart is completely broken. So here's the setup to me. It's not a trade. It's more of an investment. It's down 40 points in a very short period of time. There's another like little pivot. I remember looking at the chart at like 141 after it breaks 141.
That's right.
Is it? Okay. I have a good memory. So anyway, 141. So if you're a short-term trader, you might be in it with a 141 stop. I think that's all a bunch of silliness. There's not a great trading spot here. I think if you're an investor, Lisa is a rock star CEO. They have some issues. Clearly, they're behind NVIDIA, but there's so much meat on the bone in the AI universe that if they do something half right, the scale of revenue, because remember, they're starting small. It's like it was nothing, then it was $1 billion. Now it's ramping, can be big enough that it starts to become a good investment down here. But it's an ugly investment. It's below the 200-day. So this is a slow dollar cost average long-term investment. That could set up well because I think the PC business is bottoming. I think they're great at their core competency prior to AI graphic chips. And some of that, which has been weighing on the business, is no longer a drag. It's actually looks like it's a positive from the anecdotal evidence we've been getting. And if she says, listen, this AI stuff you're hearing about with big orders being canceled is all a bunch of BS and raises guidance, it'll bounce pretty hard. It's just a messy stock with a broken chart. So if someone's looking for a trade, I think you can find easier.
Anything to add, Rick here?
No, he hit it right on the head there.
Yeah. All right. David, we're getting person has asked this twice on Twitter, so I think I know your answer, but we'll address it. I want to know your thoughts on the possibility of Fed cut next Wednesday.
I mean, nah. Like, it would really scare the markets. It wouldn't be a good thing for markets. So he's a really bright guy. Now, yeah, I don't think so. I think it would scare the markets if he rushes it. It's not a positive. It would really signal there's some problems with the economy, and I don't think we'd respond too well. So my gut is no. But I don't think we're – and I'm negative the economy. I've been for a while, but I don't think it's that bad that he needs to rush out.
I agree. I think that we'll see a September rate cut and maybe a November rate cut. I know people, not before the election. It doesn't matter. Powell doesn't care. He cares about the economy, employment, and inflation.
I really agree with Rick. I think maybe it'll like, I know everyone says that can't happen. It's never happened. I agree with, it happened in 2008. I agree with Rick. I really like the guy. I think he's an honest guy who really wants to be independent. If he sees the need to do it before the election, I agree with Rick. I bet you.
Yeah, that's been my sense as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Fed is supposed to be, not political. And I would think if you're waiting.
Saying that's not true, but who knows?
But I also think if waiting till after the election, just because of the election, that would be a political.
You could destroy the economy. Being too late.
Yeah.
Is an issue.
Exactly. Being too late is definitely a problem. Henry wants, sorry, Henry, I missed you earlier. Henry wants everyone's thoughts on Netflix.
Rick trades that a lot, right?
I traded, and what I did was I was long it. I'll tell you exactly where. I was long it at 495 in calls and stock, wrote it up to 600, actually 590, and then got done. So right here, right now, I don't have a play on it. It came in after earnings, and I think it'll set up again into the mid 500s.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's holding that 100-day well so far, but more selling in the market. It may break through that and see some further downside. It's definitely got some support that day of earnings way back at the beginning of 2024 in the mid 500s, like Rick was saying, where he thought it might base again.
I know fundamentally it's like average. They're doing fine. Things are coming along. Great management. They own the space. But it's not like this great growth story at the moment any longer. So I think it's all about charts at the moment. For
579.20 is my fib level on a pullback in Netflix.
Okay. Earnings that we got today after hours, IBM being one of them. I know we talked about ServiceNow and KLA, but Sergio wants anyone's ideas on IBM if you have any.
6 months ago, I was long IBM because I thought, they're an under the radar AI play. And it went from 182 to 195, and then they missed earnings. And that was last quarter. So now this quarter, everything's all right again. And I'm not going to buy it up here at 190. And I will wait for it to come in 170, 172. But I think IBM, if you're in it, stay in it. I think it trades over 200 as a proxy for AI.
Any other thoughts from anyone? Or we'll move on to the next one.
No, I don't really trade IBM. So
it's another great example. Like Rick's traded, I still haven't traded. Right. I get it. Right. It's no longer the old IBM, but I still haven't changed my ways to buy it. And here Rick's been in it. I know for a while made a lot of money in it. So yeah, I'd listen to Rick.
All right. Bill wants everyone's opinion on coin.
Well, coin is sure volatile. I mean, it's got a really nice long base that it's building all the way back to March. Bitcoin has been strong. But, the things that I've seen in the news are that their revenue should be declining. I don't know. Let's see, they don't have earnings, it looks like, until beginning of August, maybe? Are they next week? That stock scares me a little bit because it's so volatile and it's up so much that I'm not ready to do anything with it until after earnings and I see how it's doing. But that would be a great after earnings play, either long or short, depending on how the earnings come out.
Proxy for Bitcoin. I'm like, I get it. And some people love the business model. I don't like it because eventually I think it's going to shrink. I don't believe in this whole custodian story is going to save their margins. So if you're going to buy a proxy for Bitcoin, why not buy something easier like IBIT or one of these ETFs that are finally out there and not have to deal with all the other stuff? So that, for me, just my personal opinion, it's safer. Now, sometimes you get these alpha moves in Coinbase based on the chart. I'll do with it. Otherwise, I'm like, there's other stories I prefer more than Coinbase. And like Kira said, it's done unbelievably well. It wasn't too long ago. It was 45 and people were shorting it saying it's going to 20. I was like, what, 18 months ago?
Like David, I'm long IBIT. I've been long for a long time, as low as 31 recently, now back up to 38. I don't like trading coin on a swing basis, and I definitely haven't traded MSTR on a swing basis because I like to sleep sometimes.
Yeah. All right, Phil inputs from Twitter. First, why hasn't seen y'all before? So we got to do more of these inner circle meetings. I think this is, great. Just all of this insight, getting this out of the room and into the public. But any short-term thoughts on SPY 30-day plays?
I'll let Rick and Kara go with that.
I'll tell you what, since I got hit with the y'all here, I'm going to do this and it won't be offensive. I think it can actually be long the SPY. I think it's going to trade down a bit, but for too long, it's going to go higher. And in the 30-day window you done give me, I think it can trade. Wait, I'll give you a number. Hold on. 555.
Okay. All right. Good level there. Got a level from Rick for the SPY. Any thoughts, Kira, yourself?
Well, going out 30 days is kind of a long time for me.
Especially in this market,
trades that go out that far. I'm usually looking 2 to 3 days, unless it's something that really fundamentally I love and I think I just want to put it away and hang on to it for a long time. So that's kind of out of my out of my expertise for sure.
I can speak for her, like she'll hold something for a year, like Immunome, right? Or 2 years.
Yeah.
But because it's a story that she knows and understands. I think macro is, you're not a big macro person, right?
Well, this market, I mean,
that's what SPY comes down to. It's so much macro.
Yeah, well, this market is changing so much all the time. It's Barb. Okay, so last call for questions, everyone. We're approaching the hour-long mark, and I don't want to hold these guys any longer than that. Barb wants to know your opinion on VZ, Verizon.
I haven't looked at that in forever.
I haven't traded it. They keep paying a very nice dividend, but the stock doesn't go anywhere. So I don't have any attention on it.
It's been in a trading range for months, between like 38 and 42. So, I don't know what the prospects are for it long term, but short term, it just looks like you're going to be sitting with your money tied up and not really making any money.
To me, that's a dividend play, right? It's got to have a juicy enough dividend to make it make sense, especially with rates the way they are right now. Otherwise, like, who cares?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. CDAC from Twitter. We kind of touched on this, but may not have been here for it. So we'll as we're approaching the end here, and we're awaiting this PCE on Friday. What's your thoughts on Tom Lee's IWM target for 280 by mid-September? I know you've discussed this.
Who's this Tom Lee guy?
Yeah, David did mention that he's looking at more like 230, 240, I believe. I mean, 280 is a really, really high target. So let's shoot for maybe the lower ones.
I'm not against it.
No, I'm not against either. But what we did that was so nice is that as IWM shot up above 225, I mean, David mentioned we got short. So we were long for a while, had a really, really nice short trade, and then have gotten long again. So if it were to go to 280, we'd probably have multiple trades between here and there, both long and short. So that would be fine with me, but
it would expand the ideas we can do too. It would mean there's a lot of small cap, SPAC type crappy companies, and biotech would be going crazy. So it would open up the doors to so many ideas. I hope it happens because it means there'll be like XYZ amount of new ideas.
And I will have a specific answer for you Friday after the PC.
Yeah, a lot waiting on that PC, especially for the small caps. Okay. Mike has asked this question twice, so I'm going to ask it. He wants to know that if Biden were to end up stepping down as president, how do you guys think the markets would react?
So my thought, the more and more a market adjusts to a story or hears about a story, the more and more they adjust, whether true or not. And I don't want to say I've taught Rick and Kara, but I remember pointing out to them during Trump's reign as president, that when he would fight about tariffs, every time we heard tariff news, we go down 500. Then at one point it was 300. Then at one point it's 200. Then there'd be tariff news and we go higher. Now, I'm not saying that we know our president is stepping down during the middle of his term or towards the end of his term, but I'm just saying it wouldn't be a complete bona fide shock to the world. So I don't know if the market has to break down. Now, there are some people I know that really are a bit concerned. No opinion here, because I don't think it's proper at this stage, but there are some people out there who are scared, you know what, if Kamala is actually our president today. They don't think she's prepared to do it, but she is also going to be running against Trump. So we're already aware of that. We've already, to some degree, adjusted that there are real possibilities she could be the next president of the United States. So my thought is, it wouldn't be a huge shock to the system. And if it was, it'd probably be viable because I think the market's been given such a heads up so many times. I mean, let's face it. There were a lot of people out there saying he's dead. He's got to be dead. He's dead. He hasn't spoken. Whether you like those people, whether you believe in them, there were a lot of people out there yesterday who thought our president had passed away, given that no one saw him or heard from him and just saw a letter. So I think the market wouldn't freak out.
Well, we also had this question several times about whether or not Biden would quit his run for the presidency. And there were people on our chat asking the same thing, like if he steps back from running again, will the market sell off? And after we heard it, I don't know, for a few days or a week, there was no reaction in the market. And I kept saying, I think everybody kind of expects it at this point. It's not going to affect the market, and it didn't. And I think with this new question, it's similar, but in the same vein that I don't really think the market would respond to it.
Let me say this to wrap this up. If you're looking for black swan events to change the way the market runs, forget about it. I'm 1,000 years old and I've seen people, there's an uproar in Russia, gold's going to zero. Forget it. We had the war in Ukraine, we should have been down 300. We weren't. Just trade the price and the charts and you'll be okay. Everything else like this gets in the way of your thinking.
All right, I think this is a really good question to end on here. Rafa wants to know what stocks you would be buying or holding as investments for the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, there's a lot for me, but I will say only because the chart looks great and I've been on the record with it is if you have risk capital and you like biotech, one of my largest positions that I was involved with for many years, helped finance the company pre-IPO, is Immunome. And as one of the most powerful men in biotech who founded Seagen, bought out by Pfizer for $42 billion, he now runs I Am Mary, N Nancy M, Mary, Immunome. And to make a long story short, it's a great proxy for cancer. They have a few different trials going. They have done things with B cells that have never been done before. The man running the company, Clay Siegel, is a home run hitter, and yet it has well under a $1 billion market cap. So if I had spec money and I was looking long-term, I'd look at that. And then finally, this stock recently just closed above its 200-day for the first time in 2 months and has a beautiful chart and looks on its way to 17 and then 20. So that would be one of my calls. But I mean, when NVIDIA is really ugly tomorrow, if it is, do yourself a favor and buy some.
I would have said exactly the same thing about both Immunome and NVIDIA. I mean, those would be my two top picks, hands down.
I have nothing to add there. NVIDIA, absolutely. And I think Apple's going to come back to the fray a little bit. So if you wanted to hold for 6 months, somebody asked me today, if you had a Mag 7 stock that you could hold for 6 months, what would it be? I said Apple.
I like it.
Okay.
I mean, I think
All right.
it missed a lot of the bull market, so that makes sense.
All right. All right. So everyone who is here with us still, we have a really big audience here. If you want to work with David, Rick, and Kira, you can apply for the Inner Circle by going to t3live.com/IC. This is just a screenshot from the end of the trading day last Friday, the end of the week. Thank all three of you. We did really well. Fantastic guidance. It was a hard week for a lot of traders last week, but Inner Circle had some really big trades. So if you don't want to miss the next one, go to t3live.com/IC to apply to join this team. And Selling Puts from Twitter wants to know, how do we follow you guys? So David is at Epic Trades 1. Kira is at Kira's Epic Trades on Twitter. And Rick is at Cranky Ricky on Twitter. I think he's probably watching on your Twitter, David, because everyone is tagged on the T3 Live one. But again, that's Epic Trades 1 for David, Kira's Epic Trades for Kira, and Cranky Ricky for Rick's Twitter. And we will do this again because this was a great reception. And it's so good to bring all of you together in public so everyone can hear all of your insights. So thank you all for doing this with me today. Thank you everyone for watching us live, and have a great trading day tomorrow and a great rest of the week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Good night, everyone.